split decision, and still.
My name is Chris Ferguson. Joining me is Tristan Lauder, my co-host, and we have with us UFC Welterweight Jake the Celtic Kid Matthews. He's sitting just outside the top 15, and we last saw him in action in June of this year. He scored a second-round TKO against Andre Fiallo in a pretty masterful performance. He's 7-1 at 170 pounds now. Before we get into the rest of the interview, mate, what's been happening since we saw you last?
Oh man, just been keeping in training. You know, obviously trying to get another fight. I've been quite active, calling guys out, trying to get a top 15 opponent. At the end of the day, a fight's a fight, but I feel like at this point in my career, it'd be good to get a ranked guy. You know what I mean? I've had 16 fights in the UFC, and you can only punch the time card so many times. So I want to make these, next few fights really count. So we're just staying in the gym. You know, I could be fight fit in 3-4 weeks and be on weight. So we're just sort of keeping that fitness, maintaining it, and when we get the call up, we're good to go.
Yeah, mate, you've been pretty vocal online about trying to get a fight put together. You glossed over for UFC Paris. You've called out Ponzinibbio, Wonderboy, God knows who else. So, yeah, I guess that's the reason we got you in today. We're going to get you to break down the welterweight top 15 and maybe ruffle some feathers, I'm sure. And I don't know, you can tell us what the hell's going on at 170 pounds, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've watched a few of these top 15 guys, and I think the top 15 is a bit stale at the moment. These guys seem to be very careful on who they pick to fight. I always gave everyone the benefit of the doubt and thought that they just fight anyone. That's the way I've approached my career, and I thought all fighters were the same, but obviously not. Even to the point where I've had fighters, like Ponzinibbio blocked me on Instagram, so I couldn't tag him anymore. I do understand to an extent that, I'm just outside the rankings. So, I'm obviously a dangerous fight for them. So if they lose, they probably lose their spot in the rankings. But I don't see how else I'm supposed to progress into the rankings. So that's sitting around number 19 in the world. I think that's sort of the next step is a top 15 fight. I'm watching the last few welterweight matchups. I haven't been impressed. I reckon I'd towel up like Daniel Rodriguez, guys like that. I've beaten Jingliang already. So these guys don't necessarily impress me. I definitely think I deserve to be in the top 15, and I'd do very well in the top 15. It's just a matter of getting someone who'll accept the fight. And it might come down to, getting one more in the tier might mean that I might just have to just take someone with a decent name, but outside the top 15.
Just on that too, Jake, like looking at the top 15, there is actually quite a lot of people that aren't, don't have a fight booked or anything like that. So they're free right now. And if you wouldn't mind, man, I'm thinking maybe we just go through one by one from 15 to number 1 and just kind of break down the top 15, how you'd match up against them and if you're interested in the fight. At number 15, man, we have Michel Pereira. So he's quite a dynamic striker, Brazilian guy, pretty unorthodox, comes out with flying knees, all sorts of things. How do you think you stack up against him, man?
Yeah, well, he's fought Fialho, and going off that fight, he didn't seem to put Fialho in too much danger. I did. So I know MMA math doesn't really work that way, but, because I fought Diego Sanchez as well, and so has Pereira. So we've fought similar guys, and I think I've put more of a hurt on the opponents we've fought. So, yeah, just that sharp, straight down the line boxing will shut down all his bouncy, flippy shit, I reckon. So, and that's a matchup a lot of people on social media have actually mentioned that matchup and said they'd love to see it. So it's just a matter of him accepting it, I guess.
And that number 14, D-Rod, just got one over Lee recently and just got rebooked, mate, before you. What's going on there?
Yeah, I never actually seen D-Rod fight before the Jingliang fight. So from what I was hearing, I would have thought he was a very, very good striker, knocking everyone out from the Jingliang fight. Obviously, I know there's a bit of stuff around, and it probably threw him off mentally, but I wasn't impressed at all. I think he's very basic in terms of striking. Both him and Jingliang are what I call combination strikers. So they throw combinations for the sake of it, not necessarily reading what's there. Whereas I read the openings. We don't have set combinations that we throw. however my fist has to get to your face, that's the path it's going to take. So I think in regards to him and Jing Liang, they were both very basic in that last fight.
Moving to number 13, brother. Neal Magni, bit of a staple in the welterweight division for quite some time now, man. How do you think you match up against him?
Yeah, very well. Another guy I've tried to call out. I think, I'd be able to get part. I think I'd beat him at a distance striking. So if we were to fight at length, I'd beat him. And if I was to close the distance, I think he's too tall to be able to take me down. And I think at range or in the pocket, I'd be able to put the hurt on him. And I've actually had multiple. Sometimes I just get into my own head and I just have a vision, and I keep envisioning myself knocking him out. So I think he'd be a guy. It'd be a good stand-up battle. I think I'd just close the distance too fast for someone of that length.
Where are we up to? Number 12, Michael Keyesa. Yeah, I don't think he's fought in a little while now, has he?
Yeah, I think he's got good jiu-jitsu. I think that's about all I know about Keyesa. For the next one, off the back of the last fight, so I've never said no to a fight. I've never picked and choose opponents, and I'm not doing that at this time. But off the back of the last fight, it'd be good to just belt all of the best strikers. So if anyone thinks that this person's a good striker, okay, put me against them and I'll beat them. That's sort of the mindset that I had at the moment, in terms of trying to get an opponent. But and then once I get to close to the top 5 or to contendership, if I have to fight a heavy grappler, then I would. But in saying that, if I had to fight Keyesa, I guess I'd work takedown defense and, just keep on the feet.
Number 11, man, we actually do have a bit of a grappler, although he's also a bit of a striker as well. Shavkat Rakhmonov, definitely got the hardest to pronounce name in the division. But a bit of a dark horse in there as well. Like, I think he is undefeated. And have you heard about him and what do you think about him, man?
Yeah, I have. He looks very dangerous. Obviously in terms of my sort of what I have envisioned for the next few fights, a guy I'd try. I'd rather fight him in 2 or 3 fights time after I get to fight a few strikers. I don't really have anything bad to say about him. He seems very humble. He gets in, gets the job done. Made Magni look almost amateurish. So he's definitely a dangerous guy for the division. I think he'll be up near the top very quick.
And then after that, at number 10 is Vicente Luca, coming off of 2 losses at the moment.
Yeah, another guy. I think I might have mentioned him. A lot of other people have mentioned him on social media as well. I don't know. I think everyone has their peak. I think he's past his prime in the sport based off especially the last fight against Jeff Neal. So, if you can avoid his big winging power punches, I think in terms of technical boxing, I'd outstrike him for sure.
Whereabouts do you think he should sit? Whereabouts do you think he should be fighting next? He's on a 2-fight skid, surely fighting down. Is he fighting that far down that he's fighting out of the rankings at this point?
Well, if he is, then I'll take that fight. If he doesn't have anything booked or lined up, I might message the matchmakers today and mention that.
Get that in.
Yeah, I didn't know he was on a 2-fight losing streak. I thought it was just the one. But if that's the case, and he's dropped from number 6 to number 10. So, and I guess beggars can't be choosers. If you're on a 2-fight losing streak, you should have to fight who the UFC tell you to fight. I don't think you get to dictate who you want to fight off 2 losses.
Moving on to number 9, bro, we have Jorge Mazado. So obviously no introductions needed there. How do you feel about the flying knee, bro?
Yeah, he's a big character and he's done quite well for himself. I was surprised when I looked at the rankings to see that he was number 9. I thought he was still up ranked higher than that. But I didn't bother calling him out because, even though he's ranked number 9, he's probably going to get the more high-profile fights. There was talks of him fighting McGregor. I back myself against anyone, and especially, against strikers. I think I can stand up with any striker in the division, and he's a striker, so I'd have no issues fighting him. But it was someone I didn't even bother calling out because I think they're only going to save him for those big profile fights, with the Diaz's and the McGregors and whatnot. So maybe down the track we'll get a fight in, but yeah, always back myself against these guys.
Number 8, someone you have a bit of experience with, young Sean Brady, the young jiu-jitsu prodigy. Sorry. Any inkling of trying to get that one back, or save that one for a little bit? What do you reckon?
Yeah, again, it's not someone I'm going to bother calling out because the way the UFC work, you're not going to get a rematch until we're both like maybe top 10 or top 5, and we might be like the main event on a fight night potentially, or
Yep.
if we're like top 5 and there's no other fights to make, that's the only way you're going to get a rematch. They don't really do them that often. But yeah, so I get one of the ones that I've left, and I guess that's sort of a goal of mine. I said it after our fight, and mind you, I felt very very confident in that fight. It was just a few things game plan wise. Obviously my boxing went really well in that fight, and I believe if I was able to throw in that fight the way I did against Fialho, the result would have been the same. So if we were to fight again, I'd be very very confident. And but yeah, I don't see that happening until we're both, a bit higher in the rankings.
And moving on to the next one. So we have number 7, somebody who you've called out before, the Karate Kid Wonder Boy himself, Stephen Thompson. How do you feel about that kind of matchup, man?
Yeah, good. I mean, I think the only really thing you have to watch out for is those counter kicks out of an exchange. Left kick comes up very quick. So if we're in the pocket and we're striking and I create distance, that's really the only danger that I've seen with his fights, especially lately. And obviously he uses those kicks well to maintain distance, and he's quite long. So I'd have to break through that distance and get in close. But another guy I'd be confident standing up with him. Nothing but respect for Stephen. He's a legend. He's a big name. I don't think I got a response when I called him out. But I can only try. So, but yeah. But like you can see the top, the first, 6 or 7 inside the top 15 are majority strikers. So that's who I was focusing on. And I think the highest ranked guy I called out was Stephen Thompson. I do like the idea of that fight, purely because he's a good striker, and obviously, the UFC are pretty good. They'll entertain any fight, unless I say I want to fight for a title the next fight. Then obviously no, but within reason, they'll entertain any fight, and they'll ask. So obviously, Thompson probably thinks I have to climb a little bit higher in the ranking to fight him. But, if it was worth a shot, if I get the fight against him, a very good striking bout, and if I got the win, it'd probably jump me straight into the top 10. So I'd sort of bypass the first 5 in the top 15. And it would just sort of, accelerate the process to getting to the top 5.
Yeah, so we're at number 6 now. So I guess from here on in, your shot of getting a fight in with them next is, probably not the best, but I'd love to get your take on these lads anyway, and how you might match up with them in the future. So we got Jeff Neal, who's coming off the win over Vicente Luca. That lad's got some power in his hands for sure.
Yeah, has he got many knockouts lately?
I don't know, but that
only
Luca.
I know. Yeah, he does hit hard, but I haven't seen. There's guys who hit hard, and there's guys who hit. I call it hitting different. They don't necessarily swing big power punches, but they're the ones that put your lights out. Like, not in our division, but guys like O'Malley, for example. It looks like he's just flicking his wrist, but it's the way they hit. McGregor doesn't necessarily look like he puts a lot into his strikes, but a different sort of hits. And I think Neal, it's a type of hits that they're big clubbering hits, and there's not, it does damage, but not that much chance of getting knocked out. So, but yeah, before he won the fight with Luque, I was trying to get that fight. He's obviously climbed up really high in the rankings now, and he beat Ponzinibbio as well, which is another fight I wanted. But I'd be more than confident, especially these guys who, like, again, I think he's another combination fighter. He'll just throw for the sake of it. He's not necessarily reading what's happening in the fight. I just try to pick him apart with counters.
Just curious on that one too, Jake. Like, I think Jeff is southpaw. So how do you match up against southpaw? And do you have a lot of them coming in your gym and stuff, or?
Yeah. Well, I do spar with quite a few southpaws. Almost every sparring session. And a lot of the time I'll switch southpaw. I'm pretty ambidextrous in that sense. if I was to switch, I did it in the last fight, but if I was to switch, you probably have a hard time picking if I'm orthodox or southpaw. I'm quite good on both sides. A lot of my sparring partners will get me to switch southpaw if they have a fight coming up with a southpaw. Mm-hmm. I'd say like to the point where I don't know if I'm orthodox or southpaw. I've fought my whole career and all my training's always been orthodox. That's just because you're taught, you're right-handed, you're orthodox. But yeah, I've got no issues with southpaws. I'll switch up and fight him in southpaw. More than confident.
Super awesome, man. Moving up to number 5, we have a bit of a fan favorite, Bilal Muhammad.
I don't know which fans are his favorite. He's done well. He doesn't need to win fights, I guess. That's all I have to say. I don't know. He's done well.
He's a very polarizing figure, isn't he?
Him and Brady are fighting next. I don't know how that fight's going to go. Fuck. I guess it's whoever can get on top and hold the guy first, probably win. It is MMA at the end of the day. So, yeah, if that's what you have to do, win fights, and that's what you got to do. And the rest of us, we just got to figure out how to bypass that. You know what I mean? Which would basically be any time you're up on your feet trying to make him pay and inflict damage, and primarily not end up on the ground in the first place.
All right, we're already in the top 5. Heading to number 4, Gilbert Burns. Where do you think he is in his career at the moment?
Going into the Chimaev fight, I thought maybe past his prime, but after the fight, he's not. He's still very, very relevant in the division. Very dangerous fighter. So, yeah, he's very well rounded. He's one of the in the welterweights going through them now. They're actually they're either grapple heavy or they're sort of striking heavy. They're not really well versed in all areas. So he's one of the guys that he's dangerous anywhere. So if let's say I was to fight him eventually, I'd keep my mind open and work all aspects from the striking to potentially even trying to take him down to the ground. I'm actually quite a big fan of Gilbert's.
Yeah, he's a super awesome dude, man. Super nice and respectful. So, moving up to number 3, man, Khamzat Chimaev, the Wolf himself, man. Would love to get your opinion on, I guess, his kind of weight, like his missing weight last fight at UFC 279, man. What do you think about that whole situation?
Yeah, I'd say if you're struggling making weight, then you should obviously change weight. But maybe that was the fight where it was a tipping point where he realizes he has to go up a weight class. It happens. I've been in that situation where in my last 2 fights at lightweight, I passed out and had a seizure in one of the fights, and then against Kevin Lee, and against Kevin Lee, I had a seizure cutting weight, and then the last fight, which was back in Melbourne, after the fight, I went into partial renal failure, so the kidneys started failing a little bit, and that was sort of the wake up call. Obviously, like if I could, I would have taken Chimaev's route and just not finished cutting weight. Obviously, I had a bit of a lung condition for a period of time, the kidney shutting down, having seizures. It's obviously not good. So definitely a smart decision to put the weight back on and rehydrate if he was suffering that bad. Can't hold that against anyone. Your health's got to come first. I think now he has said he's going to move up to middleweight. So he's obviously, doesn't want to miss weight anymore, struggling a lot. So he's going to jump up to middleweight. So, but he's done well for himself. I got nothing bad to say about him. He's done what he has to do to get his name out there, and he's done well. About it.
And number 2, Colby Covington. Much of an opinion on that young lad?
Again, he says what he has to say to be relevant. Good fighter. He's kind of well-rounded, more grapple heavy. But yeah, I would have liked to see him and Chimaev fight, to see what Colby will do against someone who's obviously, in my opinion, a better, more aggressive, more powerful wrestler. Colby seems to be able to get away with his wrestling. So I would have liked to see that fight, but with Chimaev moving up to 185, I don't think it's going to happen. I've watched Colby for a long time, and I always thought to myself, if I can, negate his wrestling, I would have no issues, doing some serious damage stand up. I guess, I believe that with all the guys in the top 15, as long as I can avoid getting pinned down, which is something we've been working on a lot lately, then, I only need to hit you like once, and then you're going to be on skates. And then I just need to take my time, and that was evident in the last fight. So, yeah.
Just as a follow-up to that one, sorry, Tristan, I'll just jump in there. Just as a follow-up, mate, would you ever consider taking the sort of route that he's taken in terms of, the way that he goes about trying to get a fight and all the shit talk and all the rest of that? Is that something that you would consider a persona like that if it come to it?
I've thought about it, and I think there's probably been little glimpses on social media of where I've started to do that. But I think so when I talk to fighters about marketing themselves, I say you have to be consistent with, in terms of social media, you have to be consistent with content and consistent with your character. I don't have the effort. I barely have the effort to keep consistent with content, let alone the character. And it takes a lot of effort. People don't understand it's very, very tiring. And I think you have, let's say, so I tell guys, you got to exaggerate. Whatever your natural personality is, you have to exaggerate that. So Colby must have some sort of that arrogance, that ego. That must be something that he naturally has, and that's part of his personality. He just exaggerates that a lot, or he just loves running amok. I don't know. It's one or the other. But yeah, I don't know. I just like to put my effort into training, and yeah, I guess I don't know. My character's more sort of modest, clean cut, which doesn't sell. No one wants to see that shit. So, but I think you have to, in this sport, if you're real and you be yourself. Sorry about that. Fuck, man.
No, you're all good, man. You're all good. We'll just move on to Kamaru Usman real quickly and see if we can get that in before the phone dies again. So yeah, number one, Kamaru Usman, just knocked out by Leon Edwards. What's the bit of a two-parter? What do you think happens in the rematch there, and how do you think you stack up against him if that ever fight comes about?
The last fight was good. It was a good indicator to show everyone that you're never out of the fight. You know what I mean? Especially with MMA. If that was a boxing fight and Kamaru is the better boxer and he's been winning for 4 rounds, he's going to win the fight. But that's the beauty with MMA, is that you can pull anything out. It could be a submission, striking, takedowns, whatever it is. There's always a chance to win. That's why in MMA, you've always got this anxiety, even till the last 10 seconds. You have this anxiety in your stomach, like something could go wrong and you could lose. So it was a good showing of that. I think if they fought again, Usman would probably win. I think that was probably a 1 in 10 chance of Leon landing that. The way he landed it, the timing that he landed it in the last round. But good on him though. Leon's a good striker. Again, it's a guy I always thought, I'd be able to beat. Way back when, let alone now with figuring out how to bring my striking into the fights. I think Usman would come back and get the belt in the rematch if they do rematch. I think I wouldn't say a fluke. I believe it was calculated and set up, but the chance of him doing something similar like that in the next fight is probably slim, but who knows?
I just wanted to check up on the eye after, what was it, UFC 270, no, 220, 221? Was it 221 with Lee?
Oh,
Jing Liang?
Yeah, how's the eye after all that?
Finger in the eye?
It's not as good as the right one. It's like a bit of a degenerative thing where it's probably going to get worse. I didn't realize. I guess it's just a slow progressive thing, but I didn't realize until someone actually asked me, and then I sort of had a look at the eye. I said, you know what? I said the left eye actually is worse. And then I went to the optometrist, and they said, yeah, on your left eye you could actually use wearing a prescription because I'd get some eye ache sometimes. They said obviously the difference between the eyes is giving me a bit of a eye ache or a headache. So because of that, I actually have prescription lenses that I never wear. But yeah, I mean, it could have been a lot worse. You know what I mean? He could have taken my eye out. It could have been the last fight I had. That's how I put food on the table for the family. So post fight, I was very modest about it and humble, and I was just like, you know what, just pay it off. But you know, maybe a bit of maturity. I've thought back to it now. It's like, fuck that guy, man. He could have been the last fight I ever had.
Has there been any interaction between you two since then?
No, we fought in Singapore. Not the last Singapore card, the one previous to that. We both fought there. Just to walk past each other, a bit of a nod. That's about it. But that's when I was still, that's when I was still in the mindset, like, just paid it off. Just a young idiot. Didn't really think too much about it. But now I'd probably, chat some shit if I saw him next time.
Would you fight him again?
Yeah, fucking oath. Yeah, and I guarantee next time, obviously, my striking now compared to then is worlds different. So, and I think he hasn't improved at all. He's the same fighter. All these guys, you don't see much improvement because people got to remember, I got in the UFC when I was 19. Now, when I fought Ying Liang, I was like early 20s. So I'm progressing and getting better, and these guys, most of them are getting into the UFC around their prime. So for me, that's why I've been in the UFC so long. I've been progressing, and for me, it's more of a marathon. A lot of these guys will get in during their peak, and it's in out, get as much as they can while they can. For me, it's going to be a longer run. I'm going to be, by the time I'm finished with the UFC, I'm probably going to be in there for 12, 13 years.
You're good, dude. We'll wrap it up. I genuinely appreciate your time today, Jake. It's been awesome chatting to you. It's been awesome getting your opinion on the top 15. And mate, I for one hope we see you in February in Perth, as is rumored for Australia.
I got inside word that's being canned. Just so you know.
No, don't be saying
news.
this.
Why?
Yeah, sorry about that. No.
That's a great way to end the interview, Jake. I really appreciate that, mate.
I had people messaging me asking fucking. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but yeah. I've had people saying they're booking their flights to Perth, and I said just wait. That's a bit of inside info that I got, so we'll see. But hopefully I'll get one. I want one more before then. If I get one win before then hopefully that event would be a top 15 opponent in front of an Aussie crowd, which would be cool. So
super cool.
Yeah. I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, man. Cheers, brother.
No dramas, mate. Thank you very much. We'll be in touch soon. Hopefully, when you get a fight booked, we'll get another chat in then, mate.
No, whenever he's stuck for a guest or anything, let me know. I'll jump on.
Hey, legend. Really appreciate that, Jake. Thank you, mate. Yeah, man. Yeah, we're just saying we're starting a petition to get an iPhone in your hands as soon as we can. So.
It's on order. It's coming.
All right, mate. Thank you very much for your time, man.
See you later.
Cheers, mate. Bye.